Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings, the living card game by Fantasy Flight Games. And I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Grant Thompson, just along for the ride.
And in this episode, we're going to talk about the encounter set, Passage Through Mirkwood. This encounter set has 10 encounter cards, but also includes the 4 quest cards that you need in order to play the scenario. And so there are only 5 different cards in the encounter set, and there's actually no treacheries in the encounter set either. So there's not really much to deal with here in terms of difficult stuff. And I'll preempt Grant before I ask him about his first impression of this encounter set and say that the locations in this counter set actually help you. They're very easily traveled. They're very low threat, and once you travel through them, you actually get a benefit by being able to draw cards, and I guess they both are draw cards. So the Old Forest Road and Forest Gate are cards that are beneficial to you, which, in my experience in this game, is very rare to have an encounter card that's going to help you out. But Grant, we'll get to you now. What do you think of this encounter set?
I believe it's a softball. It is, in my opinion, the weakest of all the encounter sets from the core set. There aren't many noteworthy, if any noteworthy things that could affect you during the playthrough. As David said, the 2 locations give you a bonus for either traveling to them or for clearing them. The enemies are standard. They're not exactly painful. They're just deck fillers, in my opinion. Something to bulk out the encounter deck. And the one that stands out for me is the Forest Gate, that after you travel to the Forest Gate, the first player may draw 2 cards. That, in my opinion, it is probably the biggest help in this encounter set. It allows you to either make up for lost time against the Enchanted Stream from the other set that it's paired with, or even just to give you a head start in your next round of planning. It's always a good help.
Well, when I'm looking at this deck in terms of this set in terms of the enemies, the locations to me are not concerning at all in terms of travel or anything. So the enemies, I get that the spiders, the forest spider, is kind of what I would call a standard enemy, where it gets a little bit of a bonus when it attacks, but it doesn't have much attack, it doesn't have much threat, its engagement cost is relatively low, so you're going to have to deal with it. It does have 4 hit points, so it's not, so it's a little bit of a pain in the neck, and there's plenty of copies. There's 4 copies of it. But the thing is those bats, the bats make you lose a character from the quest, and then you can't reuse it. And that's the problem, is it doesn't ready the character. You get to remove the character from the quest, but then you can't ready it and reuse it. The character doesn't ready, which I guess is the way that it always works when a character is removed from the quest. But, this is kind of the first time that the encounter deck throws this at the player, and that's kind of a pain in the neck for something that has an engagement cost of 15. It's not a pain in the neck to get rid of. It's not anything that happens. It's just the when revealed effect that's kind of a pain in the neck. How about you? What do you think of the enemies?
Like I said earlier, the East Bay Patrol is probably the only notable enemy here for me. You said the forest spiders, and I can understand why. But the East Bay Patrol, with the 3 attack and the 5 engagement cost, if your heroes are already taken up for questing or something, they could do some damage to you.
That five engagement cost is a pain in the neck.
I I wouldn't say they're pain level material, pain in the neck.
Yeah, it's not like a boss is coming out and killing you. You know, you don't have
No.
like Ungoliant Spawn coming out or the Hill Troll or something.
Exactly. I don't even think he's Gandalf-worthy material just to nuke him to get him out the way.
The other part of this particular encounter set is that you have the quest cards, and the quest cards are interesting because the quest cards kind of set up the scenario and tell you what to do in the scenario. But I think that Passage Through Mirkwood was kind of designed by Fantasy Flight Games to be more of a tutorial scenario than it was designed to be a real questing or thematic scenario. I think it was designed to kind of put you in a familiar place, the Forest of Mirkwood, dealing with reasonable enemies like spiders and things like that. And so there's not really, in terms of the quest cards, going from 1A to 1B, there's really not much in terms of effects. You put a location out there, which stands to reason because when you start questing or when you start a quest as your adventurer, you want to start someplace, so you put out the old forest road, and then you have an enemy to deal with, a forest spider, which isn't necessarily that difficult, and then there's nothing with 1B. And in terms of questing, 8 quest points isn't a ton. And then you come to the fork in the road, this is what I appreciate about the game the most, is that the quest cards put you into whatever scenario you're dealing with. So you're kind of fighting the flies and spiders at the beginning, and then you have these guys that you're worrying about, and then you have to make a decision. There's a fork in the road, and you have to kind of come to the right decision. And I guess you don't pick the right decision because you don't know exactly which one. The quest card 3A, and there's 2 3As, and so you're asked to pick one at random, and then you don't know which one it is. But I don't think that the 3B sides of them are too difficult to deal with. I think that whether you're gonna beat Ungoliant Spawn and a spider, or whether you're gonna travel for 10 and beat Ungoliant Spawn, I don't think that either of those provide that big of a challenge once you get the hang of the game. So I think it's really designed really well in terms of being a tutorial for players who are trying to learn how to play. And I know I kind of monopolized that conversation a little bit, but Grant, what do you think about it?
You've taken the words right out of my mouth, David. I agree with you. It isn't a thematic scenario. It isn't a scenario that provides much of a challenge. It is simply there as a test scenario, or as you said, to introduce players to the game, a learning scenario. You have a little bit of fighting with the spiders. You have encounter card manipulation, when you come across likes of the Ungoliant Spawn and what have you. The encounter cards manipulate you to do certain things. These quest cards don't really set a story for you so much. The narrative overall sets a story for you. For the quest has a overall story to it. The passage through Mirkwood, you are sent by King Thranduil to deliver a message to Lady Galadriel, and all of the core set is about delivering that message to Galadriel, and then Escape from Dol Guldur is Galadriel sending you on a mission to sort out the Necromancer's tower. Whereas this one, there doesn't seem as much urgency with this quest as you get with some of the others, even in the narrative format. This one seems like a very slow pace. You can just trickle along at your own speed. Nothing's going to hurt you too bad with this quest.
Right, and I think that all that said, I think that it can give beginners to the game or newcomers to the game fits and starts, because you're trying to figure out the mechanics of the game, which can be complicated, and how your player cards work versus the encounter cards. And so there's just a lot of mechanics that you're trying to figure out.
Yeah, which I totally agree with you. It is a stage designed for the beginners. I mean, I've come back to this quest several times with other players, like new to the game. Obviously, my partner is currently new to the game. I'll be playing with one of my sons later on, who is also going to be new to the game. The chosen path is probably the one that gives most people a pause for thought the in the quest itself, because if you are ill-equipped to face off against an Ungolian spawn you've already killed, it could do some serious damage to you. Not unbeatable by any means, but could cause a setback for you.
Well, and that's one of the things I think that is kind of neat about this particular scenario, just from an experienced player's point of view, is that you can zip through the first two stages, and you can almost get to the final stage too quickly. You know, like the first stage has 8 quest points, and the second stage has 2 quest points. I mean, you can't do it in one turn because you have to, flip the cards and stuff. So if you don't know what's coming, which is the way that I play the game, is that I never look at the encounter cards or the encounter deck or the quest deck, then you're surprised about what's coming. So, in general, you want to kind of get through the game as quick as possible. But if, like you said, if you're not ready for Ungolian Spawn to come back out, you could really get into a world of hurt there, picking randomly getting the wrong path.
And then the second chosen path, which is Bjorn's path, which is more thematic. It's what I believe that the Bjorn was telling the dwarves to use in the Hobbit series, which is you just got to race through to the end. But if you've brought a tactics fighting deck, that's not going to be much use on this quest card, on this quest stage, because of the fact that it's all about the questing.
Right, and that's you don't have to bring Ungoliant Spawn back, but my remembrance of the encounter deck is that there's only 30 or so cards in it, so you may be able to zip through all those cards pretty quickly. You don't have a lot of surge effects, so that's good. So you're not going, but in a few turns you could go through the encounter deck, and then all of a sudden you have to shuffle everything back up, and then you're stuck trying to bring and then you have to go through it all again, and that's a pain in the neck if you're not ready to quest.
Yeah, and you could be unfortunate enough to have to kill Ungolian Spawn twice in a row.
Right.
Or even 3 times, which I have had happen once, which was my first playthrough of the game.
How did you have to kill it 3 times in a row?
Because I was playing with my dad, and we ended up going through we got it revealed on the first turn during
setup?
After, obviously there's no setup.
Right, well, you know what I mean.
The first encounter card revealed was an Ungolian Spawn. We killed it. We then got it again because we cycled through the deck. And then we got the don't leave the path.
Right.
So we've had to kill it 3 times.
Ugh, that's crazy.
And I think that was more the fact that we were going too slow to try and preempt some nasty effect that we thought was going to happen at the end. It's always different, and it's always exciting because you never know what's going to come off that encounter deck. It may be a softball, or it may be, ouch, that's going to hurt in the morning.
Yeah.
Join us next time where we will discuss the Will the Land encounter set.
Okay, everybody, have a great day.